Hi, my name is Tony Millward and welcome to the RockFace podcast. This week I had the pleasure to meet a man who's been in the music industry since 1967, when at the age of 15 he joined DJing music as an office boy and was soon to work his way up to assistant engineer, and then producer. He was very heavily involved in the rise to fame of a man called Reginald Kenneth Dwight, soon to become world famous as Elton John. He was Elton's personal assistant on his extensive USA tours and was soon to become personal assistant to Kiki. He has since worked with Chris Rea, Paul Weller, Robbie Williams, Oasis, among many others. So it's my great pleasure to introduce engineer, producer, songwriter and musician Stuart Epps. Hi Stuart, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
How are you?
Yeah, it's great to meet you.
And you?
I thought if we could start with the early days. You were born in 1952?
Blimey, that is the early days.
Yeah.
I can't remember that far back. But I've seen it written down, so it has to be true that I was actually born in 1952.
Yeah, well, I won't ask you about those.
On the 2nd of April.
Yeah, like, you know, what was it like being born? Was it traumatic?
I don't know.
Right, so we'll move on a few years.
Yes.
So you were brought up in Mill Hill. Were you born in Mill Hill?
I was. I was actually born in London, but I grew up in Mill Hill, yeah.
Right.
So yes, I was brought up in Mill Hill in North London, and I was always into music, and I had a guitar from a very early age. Actually, my dad was very into sound and music. An interesting story is that I was probably only about 5 or 6, and he sat me down in front of the TV and had the TV on and had the radio next to it, and I thought, what's going on? Anyway, apparently they were broadcasting for the first time stereophonic sound.
Right.
So, you know, and there was like someone playing. Anyway, it was an amazing experience, but basically my dad, following that, bought one of the first stereo radiograms, they were called, and he was very into sound. I've still got the album. It's called A Journey into Stereophonic Sound. And,
oh yes, wasn't that used at the beginning of that used on a Art of Noise?
Quite possibly.
Track.
Well, it was an album with all experimental stereophonic sounds. So, and my dad had tape recorders all over. You know, I had tape machines from an early age. So, as well as growing up loving listening to music, I was also introduced to recording, if you like, from a very early age, and I was fascinated with it. The fact that you could shout into a microphone, play it back, and it comes back is just magical. Yeah. So and I had the gear, you know. So, and also early on, I joined bands. I just wanted to be the singer in a band and get the girls. So I joined a band with my mate Clive Franks, who I'm still friendly with, who went on to work with Elton. And you know, that's all that I was really interested in. But age 15, or probably 14 actually, this guy Clive Franks, who was a bit older than me, he was the first one to get a job, and he got this job working for a guy called Dick James, who was the Beatles music publisher in New Oxford Street. And Clive got this job as office boy, and we just idolised. He'd come back with all these stories. He's had to take the Sgt. Pepper album to the printers, and Paul McCartney came in yesterday, and just bastard, really. He's got all these great stories, you know. Anyway, I was getting pretty fed up at school, so he then says, oh, he's going to get booted up. You know, there was a bit of a hierarchy you did there when you went from one job to another. And he said he's getting going on to the next stage. So I thought, bugger it, you know, I'm going to go for this. So I went up for an interview. I didn't tell Clive. Got the job as office boy for Dick James Music.
Oh, right. So you didn't tell him?
I don't think I told him, because he might. But anyway, one way or another, I got the job, which was not the most glamorous of positions. You know, in fact, the first day I turned up in a 3-piece suit, because this was my first job, you know. And I went up there with Clive to New Oxford Street, and we're standing outside, and there's 2 big metal dustbins. And he says, there you go, because he's going to be showing me the ropes, really. He said, first thing is, dustbins got to go upstairs. I said, all right, well, you take one, I'll take the other one. He said, no, you haven't got this right, have you, Stuart? Those are your dustbins.
He's been promoted, he's not going to do that anymore.
Exactly. So I'm struggling up the stairs with 2 metal bins, they were in those days, trying to look cool, going through reception. I had all these beautiful receptionists there, and out to the kitchens and all that. Next job was clean out the coffee machine, powdered milk all over me, get the toilet paper out. Anyway, didn't bother with the 3-piece suit the next day.
I can imagine.
Overalls was sort of better. But anyway, working at Dick James Music, this is 1967 in London, was a pretty amazing experience one way or another. I was getting £6 a week, which was £5.50 more than I'd been getting. So I was now extremely rich as well. And starting to learn the music business, really, by being the office boy. So packages round to Denmark Street, going to, publishers, record companies, seeing how it all went. Apart from that, also, there was all these amazing characters at Dick James at that time.
Yeah.
One of whom was Reginald Kenneth Dwight, and we became mates pretty quick. And, I know you don't want to focus on him, but this was just part of my growing up. As we were all growing up, and he'd play me some songs, and I just thought, wow, I only wanted to be the singer in a band, to be honest. But after hearing him, I just thought, this is something else. I don't write music as good as that.
So you thought, I can't compete with that because
definitely can't compete.
So talented.
I don't want to anyway. I was just. It was the first time someone had sat down, played a song in front of me live that I'd never heard before, and this was amazing. So I just thought, wow, that's for me, So I actually did become the cutting engineer after becoming office boy, which.
Did that involve mastering as well? Or?
Well, it didn't, because we had a small studio at Dick James. Elton would be making demos there. Even the Beatles came in there, but it was only for demos. But then following the demo, they would want a disc cut that was before cassettes even. Or a reel-to-reel. So that would happen in the copying room, and I spent about a year being in this copying room, and I loved that job. And we had a cutting lathe, but it wasn't masters, it was demos.
Right.
But it was a great job, and also I'm still amongst these amazing people. So, and also we're the Beatles music publisher. So when the White Album came out, we got the first copy or the first tape. And I remember putting it on in the cutting room, and Elton and Caleb, who was the guitarist, and everyone would congregate in this room to listen to the Beatles album for the first time. So the whole thing was quite magical, really. And,
it must have been a fantastic time.
It was a fantastic time, because there were all these... It's like
60s in London, Carnaby Street, Denmark
hippie
Street.
times, people freaking out all over the place.
Yeah.
1 minute the accountant would come in with a suit, next day he'd come in with beads and joss sticks and all that. And
so I'm just a bit curious. So you left school. You were 14, 15.
15, I was. Yeah.
So what was your parents' take on this? Did they encourage it?
Well, that's a good question. No, I mean, obviously I had to check that with my dad, really. Because they expected, and I expected, to have to stay on at school till I was 17 or 18.
Of course, yeah.
But when I said to my dad or my parents, I'm fed up, I want to leave, I want to go for this interview, my dad said, go for it.
Did he really?
Yeah, they were always
did he do
incredibly... Well, he was the managing director of a coat factory, and he was a great guy, but also quite passionate about music, and extremely passionate about sound. So when I was telling you about the journey into stereophonic sound, we used to have 2 10-inch speakers in the lounge, and there'd be racing cars roaring and orchestras going off and neighbours knocking on the door, turn the sound down and all that. So it had the added, for me, growing up, because I think those years when you're growing up are so important and have such a bearing on what you do in later life.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, definitely.
I thank those times and my dad for that, because it introduced me to recorded sound, which actually I'm still fascinated by and still doing it.
Do you remember what records he used to have in his collection, what you used to listen to, like your introduction to music?
Well, it was all the pop stuff. Well, you see, I also had 2 sisters. Well, I've still got 2 sisters.
Yeah.
So the record collection was made up of, do you know what? That's a very interesting question. My dad and it wasn't just my dad in those days, it's your mum and dad. So my mum and dad used to go to, actually, that specifically, they used to go to, musicals, and then they'd buy the album from that musical. So it wasn't Sound of Music, it was these big orchestral, big whatever they were, West Side Story, I don't know. And they'd come back with, my dad actually, we Jewish family, so grew up with a lot of Jewish music, Connie Francis, and also I listened to music in the synagogue where it's all sung. So I grew up with all sorts of musical. My sisters would buy Ray Charles and pop records. So we listened to the radio. And when I was about 6 or 7, or maybe earlier, I had a great radio, one of them big white jobs in my bedroom, and we'd listen to Radio Luxembourg, which was the only station where you could hear pop rock music.
Yeah, I used to listen to that in bed with one of those single sort of mono earpieces stuck in my ear.
Well, you see, that's because you're only 61. We didn't have mono single. Well, we must have done, but somehow I got away with being able to listen to it used to fall asleep listening. Thing with Radio Luxembourg was that people have, well, you might remember anyway, that the reception was terrible.
It was, yeah.
So, this record would come on, maybe it's the Beatles' new single, and you're just getting into it, and then it would fade out.
Drifting in and out, wouldn't it? Yeah.
So it actually made music even more magical because it was on the airwaves and it was all crackly and it was like, what? And then it's gone and then it's fading out. And it made you somehow be more, where you're sort of listening to it in a different way. You're not watching a screen or seeing the artist. It gets the brain going.
You've got to make an effort to access it.
Exactly, yeah. And also it conjures up much better when you're listening to music that way than if you're looking at a screen or whatever. So that was also a great way. That's the main way I used to listen to music, really.
Yeah.
We had records and the stereo and all that, but...
so you joined a band as well, didn't you, called The Fables?
Yeah, we had a band. I had.
And that was even before you left school.
I was headhunted for that band actually when I was only about 10 or 11, so 12. So I was in this band, The Fables. We used to play locally. I then got Clive in the band.
Right.
So that must have been when I was 15. Well, no, I don't know. How did I do that? No, because I met Clive before I met him at school. We used to go to Jewish youth clubs. So The Fables was. But we took it fairly seriously. Yeah. And it was a good band, that.
So did you play in like working men's clubs and pubs or?
No, we played generally at Jewish youth clubs, a few clubs.
Right.
But mainly youth clubs.
Yeah.
We don't have working men's clubs in Mill Hill, Mill Hill's quite a posh area.
Yeah,
they might have them
too
now,
middle class for that.
I don't even know what a working men's club is.
Did you not? So...
we had The Fables, then there was lots... I was always in a band. I mean, I love to sing, so I was the singer in the band. Also, I'm the one with the microphone. That's how I got the job, so... was well into that. Love being in the band.
Yeah, it's usually the man with the van that gets the job in a band, so they can lug all the gear around.
The bass players had the van, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So when you went for this job at DJ and Music, were you interviewed by Dick James himself?
Not at all, no.
Right, no.
I never met Dick
really?
For quite a while. Well, he's the big man, so... Yeah. No, Dick James Music was about 40, 50 people working there. 3 floors on New Oxford Street. It was a pretty big organisation. Yeah. And I was interviewed by a chap called Ronnie Bron, who was the... he had a title, I can't remember what it was. And... I think I went for 2 interviews, actually. It might have been the next time I saw his secretary. But to be honest, qualifications for office boy, I mean, you turned up, you look all right, and you can speak English, you're in. Very different to today, where you probably need a degree. The thing is that it was an amazing place. I mean, you didn't just have and anyway, I can talk about that for hours, because obviously I went from office boy to disc cutter. I went to assistant engineer in this little demo studio. Then I became engineer, but I always was focused on working in the business, really. Yeah. And that was when I also, at the same time, when I was cutting, met Steve Brown. I've got loads of stories. I can fill up hours of chatting about myself. Great. So, that's what we want. Steve Brown, who was this very hippie sort of guy, came in to work for Dick James, came to the cutting room with Elton. Elton and Bernie were sat there. We played them this album that hadn't been released. He didn't like it. What a bastard! He doesn't. We all thought it was amazing. Anyway, we became friends, and he was in the A&R department, but he was quite a charismatic guy, and him and Elton got very friendly. Steve then became Elton's producer, produced Lady Samantha, Elton's first proper single. Then he produced Empty Sky, and me and Steve were getting on great. So then, following me in the studio, I did do a little bit of a stint as a song plugger, but I didn't do very well there because I couldn't drink enough. Half a beer and I was out of my head. So I became Steve Brown's assistant then, and then at some point we started DJM Records, and now Steve's heading he's heading DJM Records. I'm his assistant, and we're doing everything really for the record company. Very involved with Elton. I mean, it goes on and on. I then ended up aged 18, going on a 3-month tour with Elton as his personal assistant. And they were amazing times, really. It was amazing times anyway, let alone being involved with Elton now, who's now, you know, going from obscurity and nothing happening at all to when we went to the States, people are actually really getting into it. He's getting into it. He starts his flamboyant, you know, sort of style on stage, and seeing this all happen, and then the records start to sell. You know, it was a great time.
Yeah, it must have been amazing. And you came such a long way in like 3 years, when most people are just thinking about starting a career.
Yeah, I know.
And there's you being Elton John's personal assistant on a 3-month American tour.
Yes, well, you say that, but actually it sounds glamorous now.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was just, someone's got to do it, and I was happy to do it. The thing is, we were all experiencing this new world at the same time, going to America, touring, you know, staying in American hotels, hamburgers, holiday inns, and Elton included. You know, we're experiencing this for the first time, so it's not like anyone would say, "Oh, you're lucky to be doing this." It's like, actually, we were lucky to be staying alive half the time.
Right.
Because in America touring, you get these Ernies, we used to call them, the ones that, you know, they're from I don't know, Chrysler or something, and you book in at the hotel, and they've all got their nameplates here. We used to call them Ernies.
Right.
And it was in the days of, if you had long hair, you know, you get into a lift with one of them, and they'd start making comments like, "Oh, what's your name, dear?" and all that. I mean, it was it wasn't a great thing to be doing, touring in the States, until you got to the gig where there was all these amazing people digging out Elton John and getting into it. So, looking back, it was all very glamorous. I mean, the last tour I did was glamorous. That was in 1974, when now we've started Rocket Records. So I'm working at Rocket.
Okay, so were you employed by Elton John then, or was that
Never
still
been
via...
employed by Elton John.
So
ever.
that was still connected with DJ.
Rocket Records, when we formed Rocket, which was formed by Steve Brown, and I left Dick James after 5 or 6 years. Rocket was formed by the directors being Elton, Gus Dudgeon, Steve Brown, John Reed, Elton's manager, and we started the office. I helped start the office up in Wardour Street. You know, this was one of the first independent record companies, really, Rocket Records. And the idea was that we started signing new acts, you know, and bringing them on in the same way as we did with Elton. And that was extremely exciting times as well. One of the first acts we had was a band called Long Dancer, and there was a funny guitarist in there called Dave Stewart. Very peculiar bloke, but he did well.
Yes.
And we'd be offered all these sort of new bands, one of which was Queen.
Right.
Yeah, which no one thought much of the tape that we were given. We didn't know there was a band. We never saw any pictures of anyone. It was just two 10-inch boxes from Trident Studios, bands called Queen. Here it is. I used to put it on the Revox. I thought, it's bloody good. I mean, it sounds good. I love those guitar harmonies. Don't remember thinking much about the singing. The harmonies were good. Yeah. But anyway, they wanted £100,000 at the time, in about 1972 or 3. That
was a lot of money.
Which was, they must be mad. Anyway, they did get it, and they went on to do quite well, apparently.
Yeah, I think I've heard of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever meet Dick James's son, Stephen?
Of course I do.
Yeah, so he was more sort of accessible.
Of course, I see Stephen every day. I mean, he was at Dick James Music along with Dick, but he was more accessible than his dad. No one really liked Stephen much because he was the boss's son. Right. So you wouldn't swear when he was around. You had to sort of, he's the boss's son. I mean, when I was office boy, the only thing I really remember is he would send me out for the 200 Marlboros, a carton of Marlboros, and used to give me a fiver, and I think I used to give him £3 change. He wasn't the greatest musical genius. He signed a singer called Maciel, who's Spanish, and she won the Eurovision Song Contest with a terrible song called He Gives Me Love, La 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 La.
Great.
But it did actually win the bloody...
obviously not written by Bernie Taupin.
Bloody Eurovision, yeah. But Stephen, he's all right. I mean, you got to feel sorry for him in recent years, and not funny at all, because that Rocket Man film portrayed Dick as this terrible...
Yes, well, I was going to mention that,
awful character. I mean, Dick never swore. We never heard Dick utter a four-letter word, and the portrayal of him in that film is quite disgusting. And of course, Stephen went to see the film and was appalled. He wanted,
I can imagine.
You should be able to sue for that, portraying your father, who's a very well-respected man, in that disgusting way.
Yeah, he was also very angry with Elton John because he had a lot of involvement in the film. The fact that he allowed him to be portrayed that way.
Well, of course.
And do you think it might be because there was a bit of a dispute between?
No, I think it's probably because an American film company have now paid $100 million, and I suppose an upstanding, admittedly Jewish, very Jewish actually, my boy and all that. Yeah. Probably thought that wouldn't be the greatest way to portray this character for the American audience. So they go, oh no, we got to have a car dealing, twat swearing, slimy git. Yeah. And he'll go down a storm. And so that's how they portrayed Dick. And also, Elton's mum didn't get portrayed very well either. But these people are dead, you see. Apparently you can say anything you like about dead people and they can't sue you. Which is what I've heard.
I think there's a similar thing.
This is going out. Elton might hear this. I don't care.
I hope so, but I doubt it.
I don't care really. No, I think really it's like he said it was a film based on, loosely based on fact and fantasy. They called it something to get away with the fact.
Well, they always do that, don't they? I mean, it was like in the film Titanic, they portrayed I don't know whether it was the captain, but one of the crew as being this coward.
Oh, right.
And the family were really annoyed.
Oh, there you go.
Because that wasn't the facts. It's just to sort of embellish the story.
And what's annoying, though, is that then becomes historically factual.
Yeah, because people just think that is fact. It's in the film.
I'm pretty sure everyone on the planet went to see that Elton... Well, not the planet, but most people went to see that film. Yeah. Everyone I've met, they've seen the film.
Yeah, I've got to tell you a quick story. When I was about 14 years old...
I thought this was my interview. Go on, I'm only kidding.
It is to do with Elton John.
I thought we weren't talking about Elton.
Right, it's to do with John Reid. It's to do with John Reid.
Oh, all right.
Or possibly you, but I don't think so.
Oh, shit.
It's just that we went on our push bikes to Wentworth Estate, Virginia Water, where Elton John had Hercules. Yeah, and I think he bought his mum a house just down
next door, one down the road.
And so we were hanging about outside these big sort of cast iron gates, and we could see through the net curtains. We could see these sort of
through the net curtains.
Yeah, they had net curtains. There was a very low-lying window. It could almost be almost a basement sort of thing.
All right.
And we assumed at the time, oh, well, that's his recording studio. But it probably wasn't.
Didn't have a recording studio. Okay.
And there were a couple of sort of silhouettes we could see, outlines, and then a door opened, and this guy came out, and I was 14, it was a long time ago, but he was wearing, I can remember he was wearing a suit, and I think he had sunglasses on, but possibly not, and he walked up to us, and he said, hey boys, can you do me a favour? Yeah. And we excitedly said, yeah, what? He said, fuck off.
Was it in a Scottish accent?
Well, I can't remember, to be honest.
That's a bit rude, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can't remember what he looked like?
Well, I can just remember a suit, possibly a cigar, but that might just be...
A cigar? Well, it's definitely not John Reid.
But
could have been anyone, though. It definitely wasn't Elton.
I'm sure he's wearing glasses.
Yeah, I don't know who that was.
Yeah, I don't know.
Could have been his dad, I suppose. He wasn't rude, his dad. He wouldn't...
No, but
that wasn't very nice. But what were you doing? Were you looking through the fucking curtains? What do you expect?
Well, exactly. We're hanging around, being a nuisance. But I can remember we wrote a letter. We wrote a little note and put it through his post box.
Oh yeah.
And I can't remember what was written in it, but it was headed "Dear Elt," which probably didn't go down very well either.
Oh well.
Anyway, back to you.
Well, Hercules was Elton's first kind of mansion. Yeah, nice house. I used to go there loads. Yeah.
Did you?
Of course. Yeah, I used to go there a lot. Yeah.
Right. I don't think it was you who told us to fuck off.
Definitely not. I know that. Well, it might have been. I thought you were going to get invited in, and next minute you're invited to take your pants down or something.
Maybe it's just as well we were told to fuck off.
I don't. Well, that's a bit. I don't know who that would have been. No. Elton wouldn't have done that.
I don't know. But
Elton's very good with people generally, really fans and all that. Yeah. I mean, he's got a bit of a temper, as we know, but Virginia Water, that was, yeah.
Virginia Water, yeah. I was going to ask you, since you mentioned his temper, how do you deal in general with creative people's temperamental personalities? I mean, you must have come across...
Tell them to fuck off. No, I mean,
so it was you.
To be honest, Elton and me and I used to get on brilliantly most of the time. And we both had the same star sign. And whenever he'd go off on one, it's only recently we've fallen out, actually, I could tell you about that. But in those days, we just got on great, and I was a very good assistant. I would always be looking around. I mean, I used to keep people out the dressing room, make sure he was happy, and, not sitting around waiting for this, that, the other cars or whatever. And, I always related to his temperament, really. And anyway, you'd get signs that he wasn't happy. Like he'd start to go red, like a fucking volcano, and he'd start to go like that. And I think he's going to go if someone was annoying him. Maybe they're taking photos or, pushing, I don't know, just getting annoying in the dressing room. And I'd keep an eye on it, and I think he's going to fucking go in a minute. And then he'd fucking explode into this tirade of expletives that he'd make up on the spot. Some of them were unbelievable. These swear words that he'd invent. You fucking, and they go on for hours. Get out of here, you fucking. Anyway, it was quite frightening for people that maybe hadn't seen it, and thought, hello. In fact, his mum, I remember going, Reg, language, and all that. And but anyway, the great thing was that half an hour later, he's got it out of his system. We'd be laughing about it. He'd go, what did I say? And I'd tell him some of the things. We'd have a fucking good... Because he's got an amazing sense of humour, Elton. Right. He's one of the funniest guys. I mean, it can get a little bit weird, his sense of humour, but generally he's fucking hilarious.
So he would just blow up and then be laughing about it half an hour later.
Yeah, and it's good, really. I learnt a lot from that. It's good to, get it out, if you like.
Yeah. Have you come across anyone else with that sort of temper?
Chris Rea.
Yeah.
But he's not funny, and he's not funny with it because he can't handle pressure. And the thing is that with Elton, you see, I mean, I can talk about him, as you know, forever. And when it comes to the studio, and when it comes to him in the studio, Elton in the studio, he's just amazing. He is a genius anyway, and but his whole work ethic, because he grew up as a session guy, really, and was in bands, so he's done it all. And he's so thorough and so brilliant, but and extremely, put up with a lot. What's the word for that? I mean, Gus. Patient. I mean, Gus was an amazing producer, but put Elton through all, not just Elton, anyone he worked with, put them through the ringer and all that, whatever the expression is. Yeah. And Elton would be able to take all of it. I mean, Elton could sing a song like that and it would be a brilliant vocal. Gus would have him there for hours doing it, line by line, word by word,
Really?
I mean, Gus was a total perfectionist and ridiculously put everything under a microscope, which is how I learned producing and engineering from someone who just spent forever doing everything, but it was a great way to learn.
So did you find that sometimes you would end up going back to the original take?
Never.
Really?
Gus would never do that. He'd never go back. He's always going forward. He'd never go back. Even if we played him a demo or something and went, pretty good, isn't it? He went, yeah, it's all right. But anyway, when we get to this, it's always the mission of the recording process.
Yeah.
From the beginning to the end was the process that you went through, and very rarely went back on it. We'd remix something, even though we'd spent 3 months mixing it the first time.
But he did get results, didn't he? I mean, his recordings were amazing.
Exactly. That's a very good answer.
When
he did get results,
yes.
especially with Elton. And that's why they did all those albums for years and years, and Elton sort of put up with all the hours spent, and the meticulousness is the word I was looking for, because the results were phenomenal. Yeah,
I mean, I was listening to the Elton John album yesterday.
What you mean, the Elton, the Black Elton John?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I can talk about that forever, that album.
Yeah. Well, yes. Since I mentioned, I was going to say it's a fantastic production, absolutely amazing. Really, stunning. I mean, I love the string.
Well, the thing is that if you compare that, you see, I like talking about that, because the funny thing is that a lot of Elton fans, later on, they wouldn't necessarily know the order of how things were made. So the first album, actually there was an album before Empty Sky, the one that Sonny Steve Brown thought was shit, but really the first album,
produced by Caleb Quayle?
Yeah, produced by Caleb, really, yeah. It was all very hippie, and that was before Elton was writing with Bernie, so the lyrics are all very weird. And but the first proper album being Empty Sky, well, if you compare that, in fact the story is that not many people know about, is that Steve Brown, who was Elton's producer, really sorting out the whole career, we started the next album after Empty Sky, where we had the songs, might have even had your song, but definitely had Take Me to the Pilot, Border Song, and a few others. Yeah. So we went to Olympic Studios and started with Caleb, with Hookfoot pretty much, to make this next album. And thought it was brilliant, really. I mean, it was very much a band, because Hookfoot were pretty much Elton's backup band, doing gigs with him and everything else. It was quite funny. One of the most things I remember about it is we were trying to get Elton to smoke dope, and he couldn't handle it at all, because he didn't smoke cigarettes, so he'd be spluttering all over the place. Why
were you doing that? To get him to relax?
Well, because everyone else was, and he was the only one not doing dope. And you had to do what everyone was doing. Yeah. But they were great sessions at Olympic. Admittedly, Take Me to the Pilot, I think, had a 4-minute guitar solo in it. But anyway, following that, Steve went, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. He was quite meticulous, and also had a pretty clear vision of how he saw Elton. And also we did have these great songs that had been demoed. Yeah. And he just said, no, it's not good enough. We got to find a different producer. And I thought, blimey, I don't know about that. I thought, you're his producer. Anyway, so he starts looking around, George Martin and the guy who produced Cat Stevens, can't remember his name. Anyway, most people turned it down, and the story is that then Steve knew this guy who was the manager of an arranger called Paul Buckmaster. Right. So the story is that Steve had a meeting with Paul. He loved Paul, amazing character. Yeah.
And didn't he do arrangements for some of Elton's?
Absolutely, yeah. All of the arrangements on the Elton album. So while in that conversation, Paul said, who's producing this album? And Steve said, I don't know, we haven't got anyone yet. He said, well, you should try Gus Dudgeon. And that's how Gus got that gig. And then that produced the team that made the Elton John album. And it was a team of Gus, Steve, obviously Elton, Bernie, Caleb was still involved, but then Paul Buckmaster, and I helped put the sessions together. And that album was really put together like the coordination and everything. It was all meticulously planned. Yeah. At Trident Studios, it was done very quickly. But the thing is, that album compared to Empty Sky compared to most albums, is completely unique.
Different level.
Yeah, it's totally different level. Yeah. The sound was amazing.
But it still sounds amazing today.
That's Gus. That was Gus.
Yeah.
I mean, admittedly, the songs were outstanding as well. You got, you know, these semi-classical songs that no one was really doing, you know, 60 Years On and all that stuff.
So can you tell me about your...
I do waffle about.
That's fine, it's great.
It's a lot of waffle.
That's perfect, that's what we like.
Yeah.
Makes it much easier for me.
Good.
But yeah, what was your involvement in those early albums? I mean, you weren't sort of producing or engineering, but you were still heavily involved, weren't you?
Well, in the Elton John album,
the product.
Yeah, the Elton John album. We're running DJM Records. So I was doing everything from organising. There's only me and Steve and some secretaries. So I was doing everything from organising equipment for the sessions, hiring the backing vocalists, everything to do with those sessions at Trident for Elton, hiring the pianos, the organs, whatever was needed, to then organising press receptions, everything to do with Elton. Well, it wasn't just Elton on the label, but he was the main focus.
Yeah.
So doing everything. There wasn't anything that I wasn't doing.
Yeah,
and then when they were touring, you know, I'd be booking carnets and planes and taxis, and, you know, I've still got my... Where is it? I've still got this blue book somewhere. Actually, it's here.
I thought you had a red book.
Sorry,
or have you got a red book and a blue book?
Because I'm talking too much. It is red, actually. There it is, look. So I had several of these, and I've only kept this one. That logo, that sticker, is one of the first pieces of Elton John publicity ever made, really. And we used to stick them all.
That would probably go for a lot of money, that book.
We used to stick them all over the tube and all that. So in here, it's like every day, you know, it's when I could write and stuff like that. You know, your dates to remember: Border Song release, 20th of March. It's probably 1971. Elton John LP, 10th of April. Elton reception at Revolution, Birds of a Feather. Elton recording at Trident. You know, so every day, and like this stuff is historic now, I suppose. Yeah. Because it's literally the beginning songs. And then I used to be A&R as well, so I'd be sending Elton songs to, I sent some of Elton's songs to The Love Affair. I marvel at when I'm telling this story, I can't believe it myself, really, the things that I used to do and what we did in those days. And of course, if Elton had gone the same way as, say, a guy called Philip Goodhand Tate, who actually did quite well and was a bloody good singer-songwriter at the time, but no one's heard of Philip Goodhand Tate. So if Elton hadn't have been, we wouldn't be, you know, it obviously makes, because we never thought he never thought he could be as big as he is. That's Flop, you see. We call him Flop. He was Hookfoot's roadie, and we're still mates. Oh right. He's mid-70s now. He was Hookfoot's roadie. That's Flop.
What's he doing now?
He's retired, like everyone else I fucking know. Multi-millionaire. No, he's good bloke, Flop. You never saw Flop. He was always either unpacking or packing the van. But he was on all those early gigs with Elton and Hookfoot. Right. Amazing, really. Right. Hello. Paulus. Now, I'm doing an interview now, all about you. Well, about the guy you dress up as. Yeah. But we can get together, though, later. You going to come over? Go on, come over in an hour, then. 12:30, all right, we'll have a bit of lunch or something or other. Okie doke, I'll include you now in this interview. Yes, what's your name again? Elton, Ultimate, what is it? Ultimate Reg. Okay, I'll tell this chap. See you later. Tell her.
Paul Bacon.
Yeah, he's great. He's fucking great, he is. But it's because of him that I'm probably not in Elton's will. Because up until then we were good buddies. Okay. Elton's mum, Sheila, got in touch. Well, actually through Bob, who was looking after Sheila, who used to look after Elton. And she'd seen Paul, and she went, "He's fucking brilliant," because she talks like the guy who was mimicking. Dick. Right, yeah. She was like, "Fucking hell, he's fucking marvellous. He is. I want him for my 90th birthday." And I thought, wow, that's fucking great. But so we did do it, and of course Elton wasn't too happy.
Really?
That Paul played at her 90th birthday that he wasn't at. Of course he wasn't at.
Because they'd fallen out?
He went fucking bananas, yeah. So, don't get the postcard anymore, can't call him, we've fallen out. That's it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, we weren't like, I got Elton to sing on a Frankie Miller record, and we got together, and he was all pally then. Well, I could text him, we were buddies still.
Yeah.
But he really didn't like that. Especially because on the front of the Daily Mail was a picture of Sheila with her arm around Paul.
Oh, right.
Didn't go down too well.
Touched a nerve. Because he sat out with his mother. Was it over John Reid?
Well, it was over John Reid, Bob, and a couple of other people that Elton had fallen out with.
And she stayed friends with.
And the story is that, Elton called her up and said, you can't talk to them anymore. And she went, I'll fucking talk to whoever I fucking... She's brilliant, Sheila. She's such an amazing lady. I mean, that's where Elton got all his personality from, was her.
Yeah.
I mean, she could be fierce. But the three of them, really, it was Elton, Sheila and Durf, Fred, stepfather. They were an amazing trio. I mean, they were so close. And, they'd have rows, Elton and his mum. I mean, I remember when Elton, it was like, he wasn't being funny. He said, you can't call me Reg anymore, this is it. And he changed his name by deed poll, so that even his mum's got to call him Elton now, which at the time, to be honest, was like, what the fuck's that all about,
So he almost became a parody of himself in a way. He changed his identity completely to what he moulded himself into.
You could be a reporter with that sort of talk. Exactly.
Not sure whether that's a compliment or not.
I say whether that's the guy that he always. No, you see, it's interesting, isn't it? Because that guy he invented and became, yeah. Well, it's true. I mean, he wasn't born that guy. He was born Reginald Kenneth Wright. But he obviously thought, first of all, he didn't think he was booked. There was lots of other things about his personality that didn't go along with how he was born, if you like.
No, because you mentioned in another podcast that when he came back from America, his onstage persona had changed, and he was sort of getting up from the piano, and you found.
Well, that's what's amazing. He became the person that he wanted to be.
Yeah.
I mean, Caleb. He wrote Caleb out of his will as well, because Caleb called him. Billy Bunter, I mean, and if you look back at pictures of Elton, I mean, all right, he wasn't Cliff Richard or Elvis, but he didn't look that bad. But what was the thing was that Elton is the pianist, and really when he was doing the Hookfoot tours, he would not talk much. He'd just sit there and play. He was well into the music. I mean, it wasn't, to get up and start even clapping your hands, people would go, what the fuck are you doing? We were all into the music. The music was what was important. He's a great songwriter, a great singer, well, not a bad singer, an amazing musician, but it was all about the music, not being some sort of outrageous performer.
Yeah.
But obviously in his head, the people he loved, which we didn't know, were Little Richard, were Jerry Lee Lewis, were Liberace. I mean, he used to play down the pub, Elton. He'd be doing all that. So we didn't know that was part of Elton's personality. I mean, he was an outrageous character. Yeah. But we didn't know really I didn't know what outrageous was anyway. So he wore all these funny shirts and would try and put his hand down your trousers, but you didn't quite know what was going on there. But when he came back from the States, because I didn't go to that first tour, Steve went, and I wasn't at the Troubadour, But what we did see was this picture of Elton stood up, banging a tambourine on his bum, and it said Dylan Digs Elton, and that was the first time he had a headline of the Melody Maker. I went to see them at the Revolution Club. First time I'd seen the band rehearse, I'd never seen them play. And my story is that during this rock and roll medley that Elton did, he got up from the piano and started walking around the stage. I thought, what, is he going to the toilet? What the fuck's he doing? And he's got a tambourine and he's banging it on his bum. I thought, this is embarrassing. I could not bear to watch. I thought, fuck me, he's blowing it this time. Is he mad? Anyway, I'm looking around. People are clapping along. I thought, well, fuck it, they seem to like it. But that was the first time.
Because they don't know his true persona. They think that's him, that's what he does.
Well, it was taking a risk, because they could have gone, boo, you know. But to be honest, what it was when he went out to America, he was determined to be a success. Yeah. And he was determined not to be not to be ignored anymore. I mean, he wasn't dressed up as Donald Duck. He was wearing dungarees. He looked like a rock guy. And in America, anyway, they fucking loved it. They went mad.
Yeah. And a lot of his songs did have a bit of an American sort of tinge to them, didn't they? Even the early ones.
Yeah, Tumbleweed Connection, Country Comforts, and it's all about the American West. I mean, you see, that's how we get into talking about Elton, because I can talk about him forever.
That's right.
The thing is that the Elton John, Bernie Taupin relationship is... It's genius. It's just amazing. It's incredible, because Elton is singing. He's not singing his words. His words were Tartan-Coloured Lady and Tide Will Turn for Rebecca, some really weird songs.
Were they actually his lyrics, Elton John's lyrics?
Yeah, terrible, really. Well, we didn't think they were that bad.
What about Lady Samantha? Was that his?
Lady Samantha. That's a very good question. It's like a tiger. It must have been Elton's, yeah. Do you know what? I'm not sure. I think it might have been Caleb, Elton. I don't think that's a Bernie Taupin. You know what? I don't know that. That's not good, is it? I
don't think it is Bernie Taupin. I think it's pre...
Well, they met the same year that I joined, 1967. But the thing is that it's incredible, really, because Elton's singing those words, which makes him even more of a great artist, really, because he's singing these very deep, poetic lyrics, you know.
Yeah.
No one's thinking, but you didn't write that. It's him that's singing it, so as far as they're concerned, maybe did write it.
Yeah, I mean, the music is, I mean, it's just as good as the lyrics, isn't it? I mean,
well, absolutely.
When you put them together...
They're a total marriage, yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is that it also made Elton write those lyrics kind of formed these new songs, you know.
He was very loyal, wasn't he?
He's very loyal, he's very generous, he's very everything.
Yeah. I mean, Davy Johnston, Dee Murray, Nigel Lawson, Ray Cooper, they weren't all on every album, but they do appear on, you know, they sort of come and go, or they appear on a couple of tracks, like through the years.
Yeah,
sorry?
Dee won't be, he's dead.
Yeah, sadly.
No, the thing is that I study star signs, and I'm very into them. So Aries is one that I know rather well. Elton's an Aries, and I relate to his character. So I relate to his character even more, understanding it because of my own character. So when something's working, you know, what's the point in changing it? So yeah, Elton was always more in the earlier days. I mean, you know, he's got his band now and he's retiring apparently, so he's not likely to change things that much then. But in the early days, he was always looking to improve. You know, he was never be standing still. He'd always be looking to improve with the songs, and of course he had the Nigel. I mean, the first tour I did was only Nigel. It was a 3-piece, so it was Nigel, Dee, and Elton, and it was an amazing 3-piece. And he didn't take Caleb on that tour. Because actually, to be honest, Caleb's ego was bigger than Elton's, if you like. And I think Caleb was getting a bit fed up with being known as Elton's backup band, and probably Elton was getting a bit fed up with being 3-minute guitar solos all over the place.
Yeah.
So when they went to America, he didn't take a guitarist, which was pretty weird. I mean, I went to the rehearsals, I was looking around for Caleb. Where the hell is he? Oh, no, he's not. Yeah, we don't talk about him, he's not in this band. But because it was a 3-piece band, it meant the piano could be blasting. It's got nothing in the way, and it was an amazing sound. So I think that really added to this, the whole beginning of it, really.
So did they fall out over that, or?
Well, they didn't fall out verbally or anything. It was just, I mean, in those days, it was like when I was in a band, what you used to do if you wanted to kick someone out of the band is you go and form another band without them. Actually, I just remembered that's probably what he did. Yeah, you go and form another band without them, and so you didn't actually have to kick them out. But anyway, then Davy, because Davy was working in the studio with Elton.
Yeah.
And they were going down, you know, and he was getting pally with Elton. He wasn't an electric guitarist. He was only playing. He was in folk bands. Davey didn't even have an electric guitar. Elton gave him a Les Paul that he bought at Manny's that he couldn't really get to grips with.
Wow.
And then it became this 4-piece, which in the early days, and that's the tour I did as well with the four-piece. And of course, Davey and Nigel and Dee, you know, put them out of joint a little bit because, you know, they were quite happy as a 3-piece. We don't need a guitarist, so that took a little while. But Davey's been there 50 years, so, and he's an amazing guy, amazing guitarist, and amazing arranger, and you're right. Elton's very generous.
Kiki D, for example.
He says he's generous. He says if you like his house, he'll give it to you. I've got a tape, you see, called the Murray tape, because I told you Elton's a total. He's a real comedian, and so in the studio he'd start, because he gets bored, Elton.
Yeah.
You know, if something doesn't happen like that, he gets fucking bored, and he'd be waiting for Gus to run the table. And the Mill, which we haven't talked about, was this £1 million studio that Gus built, phenomenal place. And Elton's out there doing the Single Man album. No, not Single Man album. No, it wasn't with Gus. When we're talking about it was when we were doing the Single Man album, and Clive was producing, and he'd be out there going, "Look at this fucking place. Look at it. Look, you expect to see Errol Flynn's." Anyway, he put on this Jewish sort of accent, and it's about half an hour long. Call it the Murray tape, and it's hilarious.
Oh, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
So you engineered on that album, didn't you?
I did, yes.
Yeah. So that must have been quite an experience.
Well, we did with Elton at the Mill. We did what?
What? Oh, that was at the Mill, was it?
Yeah.
Single Man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's one of my stories when we nearly ran out of tape when we were recording "Song for Guy."
Yeah.
One of my stories. I don't know. I'm knackered now. I don't think I could do that now.
Really?
Well, I could do it. Do you want it then?
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
All right. Here we go. So this is the "Song for Guy" story.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Clive is my big buddy. And he's been on the road with Elton now and doing the out front sound. And then, I don't know why he wasn't using Gus, because Gus had built the Mill. Gus is very busy doing all these things, and for one reason or another, Elton was going to come. I don't even know how that happened. Maybe Elton couldn't face another 3 months of making an album, so he said, "Clive, let's do it." So anyway, he booked the Mill, and we start recording what became the Single Man album. Anyway, we've been recording during the day, and all day, well, now and again, Elton said, "Oh, before we go home, I just got this I got an idea of a thing I want to put down." So, all right. Anyway, it was about 11 o'clock. It was only me and Clive. We're all packing away, and Elton suddenly goes, "Oh shit, I want to look. It won't take 5 minutes, you know. Just want to record this song." So I stick a bit of multi-track on. I think, well, I'll put multi-track on at least. You never know. Elton goes out there. Clive, it's just me, Clive, and Elton. He starts playing this tune. Dun, 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 dun. Funny old melody, really, but it's nice, quite nice. Dun, 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 dun. No, he's not singing. It's an instrumental. I think he's a brilliant pianist. But anyway, he kept making mistakes. He'd only get about 10 seconds in, and he makes a blob or something. So we rewind the tape. He goes again. Dun, 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 and another blob. Oh, fuck, you know. And he's starting to go a little bit red, because he said this wouldn't take long, and he doesn't like
getting annoyed with himself.
Yeah, he's getting annoyed with himself.
Yeah.
Anyway, so but to not, I can carry on that part of it for quite some time, but I won't. Other than to say he now is playing dun 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 dun, and he's been going for quite a while. And I look down, and it's not. I only put a bit of tape on, but I'm thinking, it must be enough. Can't be that long, can it? Well, as it turned out, he's still playing dun 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 dun, and I look round, and it's fucking really, really not much tape left.
Oh my god!
And so now we're just thinking of the scenario that he's spent all this fucking time. It's the first time he's got this far into the track, into the song. What if I run out of tape? It doesn't bear thinking about. That fucking volcano's going to go. So now me and Clive are really fucking, we're starting to sweat, walk around, and I'm looking at it, and I don't know if you ever worked on reel-to-reel before.
No.
But it's hard to actually see how much tape you've actually got left, because there's like a rim or whatever.
Bit like a reel of sellotape. You think, oh, there's plenty on
that's
there.
It,
when you're wrapping up the present.
It seems to be going faster now, faster than 30 inches per second, which is quite a lot anyway. And we're going, what the fuck? Help! You know, does he look like he's going to stop? No. Well, how much tape you got? Well, I don't know. It's no word of a lie. He finished the last note, and the fucking tape ran out. Just got it as
God was looking down on you,
and we both collapsed on the floor. And Elton's like, did you get it? Yeah, yes. Actually, we told him this story. I never told him the story, although I told everyone else.
Yeah.
A few years ago, he couldn't have been less interested. It was like the most boring fucking story ever in his life. But
really?
But from that, though, the thing is, though, he then put another piano on, and then he put another piano on, and this fairly whatever the word is, sort of instrumental, developed into this fucking hit record. I think it was #1.
I think it's
probably being played on the radio somewhere in the world now. You know, so it did become a bit of an amazing track.
Yeah, inspired by a motorbike accident, the death of a courier for Rocket Records. Is that right?
Which some people thought was actually, because it's called Song for Guy, and apparently Guy the gorilla had also died at London Zoo, and people thought he wrote it about Guy the gorilla.
Right.
But it was about this. He dedicated it to the office boy who got killed on his motorbike.
Yeah, that is very sad.
Yeah.
I would like to mention claggers.
Oh my goodness.
So, when you were still working at DJM...
Well, I can tell you. Anyway, so what we used to do, we were very naughty boys. We had the key to Dick James Music.
Yeah.
Or someone did. I did, or Clive did, or someone did. So at weekends, me, Clive, and Jeff Titmus, who is now the office boy. So Jeff Titmus, because we went to school together, although we were different ages. So Jeff Titmus was now the office boy. I was the disc cutter. Clive was in the studio. And we all play. We're all musicians. So... weekends would come, what should we do? Let's go up to Dick's gaff. So we used to more or less break in, actually. I mean, you know, we had the key, but it was pretty bad. I can't believe we did it now that I'm telling you. And we just fuck around, you know. There'd be some instruments there, we'd record, we'd get stoned, we'd play it backwards, we'd have a great loon. Anyway, at some point it got a bit more serious. Kaplan K, who was a great guy, he's still a great guy. His dad was an actor, Davy Kay. He was a singer-songwriter as well. And at some point, we started getting together and doing things more seriously. And but it's not. I've got some great stories. I should write a book.
You ought to.
But we'll sort it out. So anyway, I'll give you something actually, which I have got a CD, a talking book. Did I ever give you that?
No, I've listened to some of it
I'll give you a copy of that.
Amazon Music.
Yeah, make sure I give it to you.
Oh, thanks.
So that's the whole Elton story, really.
Yeah.
So we needn't have talked about him, it's all on there. But it's also about me as well. Anyway, so, right, one day, terrible day comes. We used to get memos in those days. Dick James would like to see all the studio staff in his office at whatever it was, 11 o'clock. Fucking hell, what is this about? So we all go in there, me, Clive, Cap, and Jeff. Must have been the four of us. And we go in there, and the first words are, right, I've heard you've been coming in here at the weekends using the studio equipment without any authorization. Yes, Dick. And we're thinking, this is it. We're going to get, the four of us going to get fined. He said, well, what have you been doing? So, well, Dick, we've been... we're like half talking, and nearly crying. We've been, recording, and he said, oh, have you? Well, we better have a listen then. Have you got anything I can hear? So Cap goes out, brings in, I think it was a song called Train Song, and we put it on, and Dick's, he said, oh, it's all right, isn't it? He said, so he said, well, we should put it out. I said, oh, and we're sort of cheering up a bit now. We're actually going to be superstars. We're not getting fired. He said, well, have you got a name for the band? Well, we weren't a band, and we certainly didn't have a name. How the fuck someone had the balls to come up with that? We said the Claggers, because that was like this terrible name anyway. I'm not even going to tell you what it means. But I can tell you.
Go on. I'm
it's some
curious.
sort of terrible thing called clag nuts, actually.
Right.
It's like something that can happen to you. You'll have to look it up. Anyway, so this word, okay. so Caleb, I think, came up with claggers. So we said claggers. And he went, oh, well, he said, oh, well, as long as it doesn't mean bollocks in the Fiji Islands or something. He said, we'll go for it. And next minute, we're completing an album called, you know, with the band called the Claggers, with the sleeve designed by the guy who did the Who sleeve. You know, we're using the whole of DJM's stuff. Well, I'm still working for DJM anyway, so...
Are you?
Well, not now. I mean,
oh,
no,
sorry.
I thought
you meant...
No, I mean then.
I'll edit that bit out, definitely.
So, well, I wouldn't mind. It'd be nice to be working for someone. Anyway, so that was good. That was bloody good fun. But it was really done for a loon, you know. I mean, actually, you can get they're quite sought after now. You can get them on eBay Amazon, for 10 quid, isn't it?
Yeah, well, when I saw the name Claggers, I thought this is going to be like a joke band, you know, like Bonzo Dog Doodah band sort of thing.
Well,
especially when I saw some titles like Chumley's Laughing Gear.
Exactly. It was all supposed to be a laugh.
Funny Little Fred. Funny Little
Fred. That's people's favourites.
Yeah. So I started listening to
Eric is Calling.
Whittington Bly.
Yeah, that's Kaplan's. Kaplan's are the more serious ones.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard the whole album, but I.
What, have you got it then?
No, it's on YouTube. And
the great part is that we're all still alive. And,
well, that's good. So you could reform.
There's still time for us to reform.
You never know. Yeah, but
Caleb's on it.
Yeah,
he's playing some good guitar on it.
Yeah, it's a good album. It's got some great vocals on it, which I believe is you.
Absolutely.
Nice harmonies.
Yeah.
I think it's
I'm
the
still
first
making records, actually.
Are you? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, of course.
Reminiscent of sort of Little Feet, the sort of rhythm.
Fuck, you know, no, you can't say that. Little Feet, one of the best bands ever. But yeah, I should really have been a pop star, without a doubt.
Do you ever wish that you had pursued the performing route rather than the engineering, producing?
Yes, because then I could own Cookham rather than just living here. To be honest, I mean, I do albums with Juliet. Well, we've done an album. We've sometimes performed. She's a singer-songwriter, and we write together, and we've done like charity stuff, and we've done some great stuff together. I've got a SoundCloud site with a lot of it on. I mean, actually, well, because probably when I was a youngster, I was more into it. But yeah, I'm not. I prefer studio. I love the studio.
Yeah.
So I'm not crazy about performing live. No. And I think I would have retired by now had I been a pop star. So, you know, yeah, I mean, prancing about on stage is not really what I'm crazy about. But prancing about in the studio, I love the studio. I love the studio.
Yes. So, should we move on to...
Move on? I think we're finished. Go on then.
We could...
Yeah, I'll do another few whatevers.
All right, can we
just do a part 2 at some point?
Well, that would be great. Well, that's it for part 1 of the Stuart Epps interview. In part 2, I'll be talking to Stuart about how he came to be running The Mill, Gus Dudgeon's world-leading recording studio.
I've done everything. Been on tour with Kiki. I've fallen in love with a girl who lived in an ice cream van in Hawaii, and I thought, that's for me. So I went to see Gus, told him I'm leaving. He said, oh dear, that's a shame. I'm building a studio. I'm buying this place in Cookham. Anything that Gus did is going to be good. So I said, I'm with you. I'm coming on board. The last Zeppelin album was the first thing I did with Jimmy. Yeah. And he's an amazing producer, really. He's a very intelligent guy. We did the Coda album, we did Death Wish 2, which was a pretty amazing project as well. And then we did The Firm, which was definitely an amazing project with Paul Rodgers. I was going to write a book called Trouble at Mill. There's definitely a curse on that place.
Do you really believe it's haunted?
Yes. I brought him to the fucking mill. Yeah. Now he's kicking me out. Yeah, so we had a good row about that, but he's a fucking great big bully, he is. Where is he?
And that's a taster of part 2 of the Stuart Epps interview, which you can listen to next week on the RockFace podcast.